Stop scrolling for just a moment, because what is about to happen to Social Security payments in March is something that millions of recipients have not been clearly told about, not by the SSA, not by the news, not by anyone sitting them down and explaining it properly. And the people who find out about it after it happens instead of before are going to spend days confused, frustrated, and in some cases genuinely scared that something has gone wrong with their payment, when the real answer is actually something they would be relieved to hear if someone had just taken the time to explain it in advance. That is what this video is for. March 2026 is not a normal month for Social Security. It was never going to be. Changes that were approved months ago are now landing in real accounts belonging to real people. Some of those changes are adding money. Some are shifting payment dates. Some are adjusting the net deposit amounts in ways that will completely catch people off guard if they are not prepared. And preparation here is the difference between opening your banking app with confidence and opening it with your heart in your throat, wondering what went wrong. Let me start with the biggest and most significant change hitting Social Security recipients this month, because this one has been decades in the making, and for millions of people, it represents something they genuinely gave up hoping for. For over 40 years, millions of Americans who spent their careers in public sector jobs, teachers, firefighters, police officers, government workers at all levels, nurses in public hospitals and clinics, have been receiving Social Security benefits that were quietly, consistently, and significantly reduced by two provisions buried deep inside federal law. Those provisions were called the Windfall Elimination Provision and the Government Pension Offset. Most people who were affected by these rules never fully understood exactly how they worked or why. They just knew their Social Security payment was lower than their earnings record seemed to indicate it should be, and they accepted it as something unchangeable, a fixed feature of a system too complicated to fight. That acceptance cost them real money, sometimes hundreds of dollars per month, for years or even decades. That changes now, because both provisions have been repealed. The legislation eliminating them passed at the end of 2024. The SSA has been working through the recalculations ever since. And in March 2026, a significant wave of those recalculated payments is hitting accounts across the country. Retirees who have been receiving reduced payments for years are suddenly seeing higher deposits this month. Some are seeing increases of $100 per month, some $200, some significantly more, depending on how long they were affected, how large their pension was, and how their individual earnings record calculates under the new rules. And alongside the monthly increases, many recipients are receiving retroactive lump sum payments covering every month they were underpaid since the legislation took effect. Think carefully about what that means in practical terms. Someone who was underpaid by $300 per month for 6 years is looking at a retroactive payment of over $20,000. That is not a small deposit that blends into the background of your bank statement. That is a number that makes you stop and stare and immediately wonder if a mistake has been made. Let me make this real with a specific example, because I think it lands differently when you can picture an actual person. Imagine a retired school teacher who spent 30 years in a classroom. She paid into her state teacher's pension throughout her career. When she retired and began collecting Social Security, her payment came in significantly lower than her earnings record suggested it should be, because the government pension offset reduced her benefit based on her pension income. She never understood exactly why. She just accepted that her Social Security was going to be lower than she expected and built her retirement budget around the reduced amount. Now, in March 2026, her monthly payment increases, and she also receives a retroactive lump sum covering the months since the repeal took effect. She opens her banking app and sees a deposit that looks nothing like what she has been receiving every month for years. Her first instinct is not going to be relief. Her first instinct is going to be confusion, possibly followed by worry that something is wrong or that the money was sent to her account by mistake and will be taken back. She needs to know what it actually is before she sees it, not after. If you worked in any public sector job at any point in your career, any position where your employer operated its own pension system rather than contributing to Social Security on your behalf, you need to find out right now whether your benefit was reduced under either of these provisions. Do not guess about this. Do not assume you would have been notified automatically. Call the SSA directly at 1-800-772-1213 and ask them specifically whether your benefit was calculated under the Windfall Elimination Provision or the Government Pension Offset, and whether your account has been recalculated under the new law. If you are owed a recalculation that has not yet been processed, following up is what makes it happen faster. Waiting passively is what makes it take longer. You have earned this money. Go after it. Now let's talk about payment timing for March, because this is the second shift hitting this month, and it affects every single Social Security recipient, regardless of work history or pension status. The SSA payment schedule is built around Wednesdays, and your specific payment date is determined by the day of the month you were born. If your birthday falls between the 1st and the 10th of the month, you receive your payment on the second Wednesday, which in March falls on the 11th. If your birthday falls between the 11th and the 20th, you are on the third Wednesday schedule, which in March is the 18th. And if your birthday falls between the 21st and the 31st, your payment arrives on the fourth Wednesday, which this month is March 25th. For people who receive benefits from before May 1997 or who have concurrent claims, payments go out on the 3rd of the month, which this year is Tuesday, March 3rd. SSI recipients already received their March payment on February 27th because March 1st fell on a Sunday, and the SSA does not process payments on weekends, so the payment moved forward to the last business day of February. Here is where the confusion compounds this particular month. When payment timing shifts are happening at the same time that benefit amounts are changing due to WUEP and GPO recalculations, you end up with a situation where a lot of people are going to open their banking apps in March and see a number that does not match what they were expecting for multiple reasons simultaneously. The instinct when you see an unexpected deposit amount is to call your bank. I understand that instinct completely, but your bank cannot explain it. Your bank received whatever the SSA sent. They do not have visibility into why the amount changed or whether a recalculation has been applied. The answer lives at ssa.gov or at 1-800-772-1213. Knowing that in advance, knowing exactly where to go for the actual explanation, saves hours of being transferred between departments and ultimately being told the same thing by a bank representative who genuinely cannot help you. The third shift this month involves net payment amounts, which is the actual number that lands in your bank account after Medicare Part B premiums are deducted, and this is the number that surprises more people than any other part of the Social Security picture every single year. Let me walk through exactly why this happens, because it is genuinely less complicated than it appears once someone explains the interaction clearly. The 2026 COLA was 2.5%. For someone receiving a gross benefit of $2,000 per month, that translates to a $50 increase in their gross Social Security payment. That sounds straightforward. But Medicare Part B premiums also increased in 2026. For many recipients, the Part B premium went up by somewhere around $10 per month or more. If your premium increased by $10, your net deposit increase is $40, not $50, because $10 of your COLA gain went directly toward the higher premium before the payment ever reached your account. For some recipients, particularly those at higher income levels where Medicare premiums are income adjusted, the premium increase may have been even larger relative to the COLA gain. In some of those cases, the net deposit in March may actually be slightly lower than it was in December of last year, even though the COLA officially increased the benefit. This is not an error. It is not the SSA making a mistake or taking money that belongs to you. It is two separate systems, Social Security and Medicare, both adjusting simultaneously, and those adjustments interact with each other in your net deposit in ways that are not always immediately intuitive. Understanding that interaction before you see the number is what keeps a confusing bank statement from turning into an unnecessary panic spiral or an hours-long phone call where you are trying to convince someone to fix something that is not actually broken. Here is what I want you to do this week before your March payment arrives. Log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov and look at your benefit information carefully. You want to see two separate numbers. Your gross benefit amount, which is what Social Security has calculated your monthly payment to be before any deductions, and your net deposit amount, which is what actually hits your bank account after Medicare premiums and any other deductions are subtracted. When you know both numbers and you understand what connects them, you will not be surprised by what you see. If you do not yet have a My Social Security account set up and you need help getting one created, your local library or senior center can often provide that assistance, and it is worth taking the time to do it before March payment dates arrive. Now let me address the WEP and GPO changes in more depth because I think this deserves more attention than it has received in mainstream coverage. The windfall elimination provision was enacted in 1983. It reduced Social Security benefits for workers who also received pensions from jobs that did not contribute to Social Security. The original stated justification was to prevent those workers from receiving what lawmakers at the time called a windfall benefit, meaning benefits calculated as if their career had been spent in lower wage work rather than higher wage public sector work. The effect in practice was that public sector workers received Social Security benefits that were significantly below what their earnings record would otherwise have generated. The government pension offset worked differently, but had a similarly significant impact. It reduced spousal and survivor Social Security benefits for people who received government pensions, in many cases reducing those benefits to zero, which left surviving spouses in particularly difficult situations after the death of a partner. The argument against both provisions, made consistently by advocacy groups, unions, and affected workers for decades, was that these rules unfairly penalized people who chose careers in public service. Teachers, firefighters, and police officers were being effectively double penalized for working in pension-covered public sector jobs, first by receiving pensions that were often lower than private sector retirement benefits, and second, by having their Social Security dramatically reduced on top of that. The repeal of both provisions, which finally happened at the end of 2024 after decades of legislative attempts, represents a significant reversal and a meaningful financial benefit for millions of people who had simply accepted reduced benefits as an unchangeable fact of their retirement. If you are in this category and your account has already been recalculated, you are going to see that difference in March. If you believe you should have been affected by these provisions and you have not yet heard anything from the SSA about a recalculation, that is your signal to call and follow up. The SSA is processing a very large volume of recalculations, and the process has been rolling out in waves. Not everyone has been processed yet. Some people whose recalculations are still pending may need to wait additional months before their corrected payment reflects the new rules. But following up by phone can help you understand where your case stands and what timeline to expect. There is one more practical matter about March that I want to make sure you address before the month gets too far along. The SSA is sending out adjustment notices, recalculation letters, and retroactive payment notifications by mail throughout March. These letters are critically important documents. They contain the official explanation of changes to your benefit, breakdowns of any retroactive amounts owed to you, and information you will need if you have any questions or concerns about the adjustments. These letters are being sent to the mailing address currently on file for your Social Security account. If you have moved at any point in the past year and you have not updated your address specifically with the Social Security Administration, not just with the post office, those letters may not reach you reliably. A mail forwarding order does not consistently redirect official government correspondence the way it handles regular mail. The safest thing you can do right now is log into ssa.gov and confirm that your mailing address, your banking information for direct deposit, and your contact details are all completely current and accurate. The larger picture for March 2026 is genuinely meaningful. Real money is being returned to people who were shortchanged for years under provisions that many believed were fundamentally unfair. Payment adjustments are arriving that reflect both the COLA and the new post-WEP and GPO calculation, and net deposit amounts are shifting in ways that make perfect sense once you understand the interaction between Social Security and Medicare premiums, but that can be genuinely alarming if you are not prepared for them. The difference between experiencing March as a month of welcome financial changes and experiencing it as a month of confusion and unnecessary worry is simply knowing what is coming before it arrives. You now know. Share this with someone in your life who receives Social Security and might not, because the people who need this information most are often the ones least likely to have found it on their own. I will see you in the next one.